This problem's asking us to draw and label a few different geometry basics. All right, we have points, lines, segments, rays, and angles that we're going to draw and label here, and I'll show you the correct way to label these if that's kind of troubling for you. So first off, a point. A point is just going to be a dot, and since I have to do two of these, I'll put two of them there like that. And the way that I would label this is just with a capital letter. I'll call this one A, and we'll just call this one B. All right, now you could, I suppose, write out the word point A or point B, but that should be good enough to label those. What about a line? The way that I draw a line starts with a line segment, and then I get arrows on either side. Now, in order to label this, it has to have 2 points. So let's put a couple points on this line, just like this. And again, we'll say maybe this is K and L. And so I would label this line right here as line with 2 arrows, and again, KL. So that was labeling this line that I just drew. Let's do another one. We'll slant it a little bit and call this one, actually let's put 3 dots on this, and it'll say XYZ, just like that, XYZ. And it doesn't matter with a line because the arrows mean that it's going forever in either direction. So I could pick XY as my 2 points because I know that the line is going to go past the Y as this arrow indicates it goes on forever. So as long as you label this, if I were to say XY, I can't leave it like that. I have to put the arrows above because this tells me that it is going to go past that Y forever. That's a way you can label this. I could use another 2 letters. I could say YZ, any 2 letters that are on that line. If you do 3 though, you'll probably get it incorrect on your paper. All right, what about a segment? In fact, I'm going to copy those 2 down, except for one big difference. Let's see if you can spot it as I draw these out here. We had KL, and the other one was X, Y, and Z. So let's say this is X, Y in the middle, and then Z. All right, so do you see what I did differently? There's probably 2 things. First off, it's missing the arrows. It doesn't have the arrows because the line segment stops. It starts and stops at those endpoints. And because of that, the arrows mean that we go forever. This one doesn't have any arrows, and so a line segment is just a segment or a part of our line. The way that I were to label this is I would say this one's going to be KL, again, with no arrows above it, just like that. And you could switch this around. You could say LK, right? Those mean the exact same segments. However, this one, just like up there, I used 2 different letters. I have to use 2 letters here, but I can't use the middle. This segment is talking about from the beginning to the end, or beginning to end, whichever way you look at it. So I have to use the ones on the end and call this one XZ, or I suppose you could call it ZX if you flipped it around. You cannot use the Y on that one because it's talking about the entire segment. All right, a ray, our next one here. This one, think about the sun. It starts at a point and like a ray of sunshine goes out forever in the opposite direction. This one's going to start somewhere and go forever, which means to indicate forever, I'm going to have an arrow, and I need 2 points on here, including the end point. So if I were to call this one A, B, the way that I label this, it looks almost identical if I kind of shrink this down a little bit and say this is ray AB. One thing you cannot do with this is you cannot flip-flop those like we were able to in our last one. If I were to say this was ray BA, that's incorrect. All right, it has to start at your endpoint. Now, even if it's going the wrong way, let's say it started here and it's going that way, that's still a ray, all right? And let's say this is Q and this is an R. I have to start at the Q and then go to the R. And you always label these rays as starting at your endpoint and it goes to the right. And you have to start the way that your picture is at the endpoint. So the Q, there's no arrow above this, but the R is the one that has the arrow kind of on its side. So the way that I label both of those, it's both pointing to the right. If you go to the left, I've worked with a few math type of softwares and things, and they will mark it wrong if you put that the wrong way. So be very careful with rays. Last one is angles. Angles can also be a little bit tricky when it comes to naming these. And I'm going to write out a few different types. So let's say we have this one, and we'll just say this is A, B, and C. I don't know why I drew it so small here. I'll draw a bigger one here. And we'll say this one has X, Y, and Z. Okay, you can name an angle a couple different ways depending on what's around it, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. But one way you can name it is with the vertex. That's where it comes and switches direction and goes the opposite way. So here my vertex is going to be B. So I could just say this is angle B, and that would be acceptable in this situation. Or you can use the 3 letters that are around it, as long as that B, the vertex, is in the middle. So I could also say this is the same thing as angle ABC. And just like with some of these other ones where you're able to flip-flop, you can flip-flop that as long as the B is in the middle. So instead of ABC, I could go CBA and say this is angle CBA with this little angle symbol out in front. All 3 of those are correct for this particular one. Now I'm going to change it up just a little bit. I'm going to add kind of a ray to this angle. And I still want to be talking about this one, this bottom angle here. And let's put W there. And so if I were to talk about this bottom one, now it would not make sense for me to call this just angle Y. Up here I was able to call this angle B because it's the only one. It's the only angle in that little picture. Here I can't say this is angle Y because I don't know if I'm talking about the top or the bottom one. Because of that, I have to say that just this is angle, and I have to use 3 letters, X, Y, Z, in order to distinguish which angle I'm actually talking about. Now you can flip those letters around and say this is angle ZYX. That's still the same angle, but you are unable to just say Y, as I don't know which one it is. All right, hopefully this helped you out. All right, guys, I make videos like this that are nice and fast and to the point about math, geometry, algebra, any kind of math that there is. All right, so if that's helpful for you, then maybe we'll see you in the next one.